about media literacy. Are you fun in watching televisions? And listening to radio? How about reading books? Newspapers? That is one of an example of what we call media literacy. So what is media literacy?
Like all the literacies discussed, media literacy can also be defined in several ways.
After Hyde, 1993, media literacy defines as the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, and communicate messages in a wide variety of forms.
While Christ and Potter 1998 defined it as the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, and create messages across a variety of contexts. While Hobbes posits that it is a term used by modern scholars to refer to the process of critically analyzing and learning to create one's own messages in print, audio, video, and multimedia. But its simplest sense, media literacy is the ability to identify different types of media and understand the messages they are communicating. But what all they have common in the definition is that they were all created by someone and that someone had a reason for creating them. Do you all know that media literacy education began in the United States and United Kingdom as a direct result of a war propaganda in the 1930s and also the rise of advertising in the year 1960s? So what is war propaganda?
War propaganda refers to the use of various media and communication techniques to influence public opinion and perception regarding a conflict or war. It is often employed by the governments, political groups, or other entities involved in a conflict to achieve specific objectives or goals. So war propaganda can take many forms including posters, newspapers, radio broadcasts, television programs, social media campaigns, and more.
Because media communication lends itself so easily and so well to the purpose of manipulating consumers' perceptions on issues both political and commercial, being able to understand why behind media communication is the absolute heart of media literacy today.
Despite the relatively simple and clear definition of media literacy, it should come as no surprise that scholars and educators have been debating for quite some time on how media literacy should be both defined and taught. So the conference, however, identified 5 essential concepts necessary for analysis of media messages.
The 1993 Media Literacy National Leadership Conference, held in the United States, was a significant event in the development of media literacy education. While there may not have been a clear consensus at the time, subsequent research, advocacy, and the development of media literacy organizations have contributed to a more comprehensive understanding of media literacy goals and instructional techniques. So today, there is a greater recognition of the importance of media literacy in a digital age, and many countries have incorporated media literacy into their educational curricula to varying degrees. So the conference did, however, identify 5 essential concepts necessary for any analysis of media messages.
Media messages and constructed.
To serve specific purposes and reach target audiences, so we need to analyze these messages, considering the content, perspective, the biases, and the language, context, and interactivity.
Media messages are produced within economic, social, political, historical, and aesthetic context.
These contexts are interrelated and shape the content and dissemination of media messages.
The interpretive meaning-making processes involved in message reception consist of an interaction between the reader, the text, and the culture.
To effectively interpret and make sense of messages, it is essential to consider the context, the active role of readers and viewers, the collective process of interpretation, the influence of culture, and the potential for noise and barriers to disrupt the communication process.
Media has unique languages, characteristics, which typify various forms, genres, and symbol systems of communication.
These unique languages can be used to convey information, provide entertainment, and influence the way people understand the world around them.
Media representations play a role in people's understanding of social reality.
The more we see certain representations in the media, the more we tend to believe them, which can reinforce mainstream ideologies and become an issue when the representations are not an accurate reflection of society.
The consumer's perceived meaning is what then develops into how people understand social reality. So, for example, in Mindanao, because of that news coming from the island is communicated by the different platforms or news networks. As an average Filipino who might never have been to Mindanao, comes to believe that the entire island is involved in armed conflict. So therefore, we who wants to go to that place refuses to go there, nor we didn't allow any of our members or family or the friends is unlikely to do so. So it is unlikely that this was the news media's intention, but it is the viewer's interpretation or how we interpret that kind of information that ultimately determine our beliefs or behavior. Given the broad and somewhat nebulous nature of media literacy, its implied definition can be gleaned by understanding what media literacy is not. Criticizing the media is not, in and of itself, media literacy, but sometimes we're required to criticize what we see and what we hear. So merely producing media is not media literacy, although part of being media literate is the ability to produce media. So teaching with media, such as videos or presentation and etc., does not equal media literacy because an education in media literacy must also include teaching about media. Viewing media and analyzing it from a single perspective is not media literacy because we need to require to see the both perspectives on the individuals, and it requires both the ability and willingness to view and analyze media from multiple positions and perspectives. Media literacy does not simply mean knowing what and what not to watch. It does mean watch carefully and think critically.
So, how do you consider yourself as a media literate?
As a media literate, you critically analyze and understand, evaluate those content, and you criticize what you hear, what you see, and those videos that you have been encounter or gather. So in short, think first before you share it to anyone else, and you need to know if this information is accurate or not. Digital literacy.
Let's proceed now to our topic. So what comes in your mind when you hear or when you see the word digital literacy? Digital literacy can be defined as ability to locate, evaluate, create, and communicate information on various digital platforms. So when we talk about digital platforms, it is social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Knowledge platforms like Quora and Yahoo Answers. Media sharing platforms like YouTube and Spotify. Service-oriented platforms like Uber and Airbnb. So, why is that digital literacy is important? Students who are building digital literacy skills understand the basic internet safety such as creating strong password, understanding and using private settings, knowing what to share or not on social media. But the benefits of teaching your student digital literacy skills begin in the classroom right now. So, digital literacy crucial by helping students become lifelong learners, and it teaches them essential life skills as well as academic skills. Example of digital literacy is understanding how to use web browser, search engines, email, text, blog, Photoshop, PowerPoint, video creations, editing software, etc. to showcase their learning. Cyber literacy and digital literacy is related to one another in the sense that cyber literacy means the ability to use computer technologies effectively and seamlessly understand the implication of those actions. The word understanding is the key here, as it goes beyond knowing how to use the technology to have continuous of one actions. And according to Asian Alkali 2004, digital literacy, put more broadly, it is the technical, cognitive, and sociological skills needed to perform tasks and solve problems in digital environment. So, its finals, its origin in information and computer literacy, according to Bowden in 2008 and 2021, Snavely and Cooper in 1997, Behrens in 1994, and Dretta in 2000, Weber and Johnson in 2000. So much so that the skills and competency listed by Shapiro and he used 1996 in curriculum they invented to promote computer literacy should sound very familiar to readers today. Tool literacy. So, tool literacy, it is a competency in using hardware and software tools like Evernote, Pinterest, Skype, Padlet, and many more. Resource literacy. Understanding forms and access to information resource. So, it is the ability to understand the form, format, location, access, method of information, resource. So, in other words, we put some credit if you want to access information in the internet. Next will be social cultural literacy. So, understanding the production and social significant information. So, it is a knowledge of how information is socially situated and produced. It includes understanding the scholarly publishing process or knowing that how information is socially situated and produced. This means that knowing about information fits into the life of groups about institutions, social networks such as universities, libraries, researchers, communities, opera corporation, government agency, and communities groups. And next is research literacy, using IT tools for research and scholarships. So, research literacy is the ability to understand and use technology tools to carry out research, including disciplines, related software. So it is also the ability to understand the use of it-based tools relevant to the work of the day research and scholar. Next is publishing literacy, ability to communicate and publish information. So publishing literacy, it is the ability to produce a text or multimedia report of the result of research. Also, it is the ability to format and publish research and ideas electronically and textual and multimedia forms like multi-World Wide Web, electronic mail and distribution, list and CD-ROMs. And next one will be emerging technologies literacy. It is an understanding of new developments in IT and or the ability to ongoing adapt to understand and evaluate. Make use of the continually emerging innovation in information technology so as not to be prisoners of prior tools and resources and to make more intelligent decisions about the adoption of new one. Critical literacy, ability to evaluate the benefits of new technologies. So critical literacy is the ability to evaluate critically and the intellectual human social strength, weaknesses, potential, and limits, benefits, and costs of information technologies. So note that this literacy is not the same as critical thinking, which is often regarded as a component of information literacy. When we talk about critical thinking skills, it is actually developed within the framework of critical literacy. The term digital literacy is not new according to Lanham in 1995. So he said one of the earliest examples of functional definition of terms describe the digital literate persons as being skilled and deciphering and understanding the meaning of image, sounds, and the subtle uses of words so that he or she could match the medium of communication to the kind of information being presented and to whom the intended audience is. So, 2 years later, according to Paul Jester, 1997, he formally defined digital literacy as the ability to understand and use information in multiple formats from a wide range of sources when it is presented via computer, explaining that not only must a person acquire the skills of finding things, he or she must also acquire the ability to use these things in life. So, if we compare the definition of digital literacy of Lanham and Jester, Lanham defined that if you are a digital literate person, you can disappear and understand the image, sound, subtle uses of words, but Jester defined that not only person acquire the skills of finding things, but also he or she acquire the ability to use the things in life. So, next is Bowden, 2008, collated the skills and competency comprising digital literacy from contemporary scholars on matter into 4 groups. Number 1 is underpinnings. Is refer to those skills and competency that support or enables everything else within digital literacy, namely traditional literacy and computer or ICT literacy. Example is ability to use computer in everyday life. And the second one is background knowledge. It's largely referred to knowing more information on a particular subject or topic can be found, how information is kept, and how it is disseminated. A skill taken for granted back in the days with the information almost exclusively recited the form of printed text. And the third one is central competency. There are the skills and competency that a majority of scholars agree on as being core to digital literacy today, namely First, reading and understanding digital and non-digital formats, creating and communicating digital information, evaluation of information, knowledge assembly, information literacy, and media literacy. The fourth one is attitude and perspective. So according to Bowden 2008, he suggests that this perspective and attitude that link digital literacy today with traditional literacy, saying it is not enough to have skills and competency. They must be grounded in some moral framework. Specifically, so the independent learning and moral social literacy. So when we talk about independent learning, the initiative and ability to learn whatever is needed for a person's specific situation. So independent learning is a method of learning process where learners have ownership and control of their learnings. They learn by their own action and direct, regulate, assess their own learning. So, an independent learning is able to set goals, make decisions about how to meet his learning needs, and take responsibilities for constructing and carrying out of his own learning. So, monitor his presence toward achieving these learning goals and self-assess their learning outcomes. The last one is moral or social literacy, an understanding of correct, acceptable, and sensible behavior in a digital environment. So when we talk about moral literacy, it's involved recognizing moral dilemmas in everything, every life, and society. How can we teach students to be moral? We cannot simply tell them how to think, so students need to be informed on how to make their own decisions and opinions regarding social issues. So moral literacy is important because students need to be able to identify what is right and wrong on their own. Student must realize that every action has its own consequences. Next, I will discuss information literacy within digital literacy. Information literacy is a general concept of locating, evaluating, and using information, while digital literacy specifically refers to the ability to do things in a digital environment. Information literacy within digital literacy, given the ease which digital media, as opposed to the traditional printed media, can be edited and manipulated, the ability to approach it with a healthy amount of skepticism has a survival skills for media consumer. So when I say skepticism, it is attitude or adapt disposition to incredulity either in a general or particular object. Ishad Alkali 2004 draws attention to information literacy as a critical component of digital literacy as the cognitive skills that consumers use to evaluate information in an adequate and effective manners. So, there is the use of media literacy and information literacy to check the product, to see if the information presented to them is true. So, people search the information of the products through digital media. In effect, information literacy acts as a filter by which consumers evaluate the veracity of information being presented to them via digital media, and thereupon sort the erroneous, irrelevant, and the bias from what is demonstrable factual. From this perspective, part of effort of digital literacy, education should toward developing media consumer who think critically and are ready to doubt the quality of the information they receive. Even if said information comes from so-called authoritative source. However, a majority of study of information literacy seem to concentrate more on the ability to search the information rather than its cognitive and pedagogical aspect by Ancient Acolyte 2004, Zinks 2000, Barnett and McKinley in 1998. Digital literacy make education become easier to find information. But the students ignores the quality of information they receive. However, the student is focused on the ability to find information rather than to search the information about the aspect of cognitive and pedagogical.
Socio-emotional literacy within digital literacy.
So for you, what is social-emotional digital literacy? Okay. For me, social-emotional digital literacy is the ability to understand and manage emotions.
Talisay 2004 highlights a kind of social emotional literacy needed to navigate the internet, raising questions such as, how do I know if another user in a chat room is who he say he is? Or how do I know if a call for blood donations on the internet is real or a hoax? Such questions should make us realize that there are no hard and fast rules for determining the answers. We need to be familiar with the unwritten rules of cyberspace. Also, to understand while the internet is a global village, it is also a global jungle of human communication, embracing everything from truth to falsehoods, honesty and deceit, and ultimately good and evil. For example, in an online dating app, you don't really know if that person you chat is he or she really are, so you don't really know. So, it implies the kind of richness of experience that the literate transfers from real life to their dealings online. So, digital literate users know how to avoid the traps of cyberspace, mainly because they are familiar with the social and emotional patterns of working in cyberspace. If we say familiar, if that message or information you have been encounter again and again, so you know that you may avoid it because it may be a scam and that user is not really that, or it's not the real one, so that it is really just an outworking of human nature. Let's continue to digital natives. So this term has become something of a buzzword in the education sector over the past decade. It was popularized by Prensky 2001, which referenced to the generation that was born during the information age, as opposed to digital immigrants, the generation prior that acquired familiarity within digital systems only as adults, and who has not known a world without computers, the internet, and connectivity. However, a popular misconception born out of the term digital natives and educational ideas it's found is that the generation in question is born digitally literate. If this is the case, then the question, how can digital immigrants teach digital natives as a literacy they already have? It is a valid one to which the answer would be correctly, they cannot. But the problem here is that digital literate is popularly defined as the ability to use computers or use the internet, which, as we have seen earlier, forms only one part of the crucial skills and competencies required to be digitally literate. Our expanded view of the term literate allows us to see that while the digital natives in our classrooms are most certainly familiar with digital systems, perhaps even more so than their instructors, this does not mean that they automatically know how to read, write, process, and communicate information on these systems in ways that are both meaningful and ethical, especially when the information involved does not involve technology's most common use as a personal entertainment. That is to say, when the task at hand does not involve what the digital natives consider to be entertainment, the gaps in their literacy begin to show. The most common, or as a good example of this, is that difficulty which many senior high school instructions have in teaching research. So, we students, when are in senior high school, we usually use it for entertainment such as watching videos, games, listening to music, and many more. So, suddenly, we lost in locating and accessing or understanding information from research journals and other websites or articles because we are looking for information or topics that we are either unfamiliar with or uninterested because we are fun on using this kind of internet or digital for our own benefit, not for on our school materials. Another concerning problem of digital natives is the misconception that everyone belonging to the generation is on more or less equal footing in regard to digital literacy. Although the drawing of such a conclusion is understandable, given the near ubiquity of digital technology and the internet, it is nonetheless mistaken as no one is truly born digital. Instead, the determining factor is access to education and experience. For example, is those children born to poor families will naturally seem less digitally literate for lack of access to technology and an education in said technologies. So we can call it as digital naive, which they are not good to use these digital technologies because they do not have the enough amount to buy this kind of technology or those materials. So while those born on privileged families will display more of the literacies discussed earlier because they have the money or they can acquire this kind of materials. Digital literacy education shares many of the same challenges to media literacy. For example, how should it be taught? What is the goal of this education for the students? How can it be measured and evaluated? Should it be taught for the protection of students in their consumption of information, or should it be developed their appreciation for digital media? Because using those digital media has a advantage and also disadvantage for the students or everybody who's using this. So Brown also noted that despite the global acknowledgement that digital literacy education is a need, there is as of yet no overarching model of framework for addressing all of the skills deemed necessary. Teaching and learning are contextually situated means that the process of teaching and the way individuals learn are heavily influenced by specific environment, culture, social setting, and circumstances in which they occur. So, it underscores the importance of considering these various contextual elements to create effective teaching strategies and environments that cater to the diverse needs and backgrounds of the learners. So, it is the emphasis to the need of our flexibility and adaptability in educational approaches. Professional development activities should be designed to build on teachers' own knowledge and beliefs as well as perceived problems and classroom practices. Can digital technology help us attain that goal? Of course it is. Digital technology can indeed help in achieving the goal of enhancing education, such as increased access to education resources, development of abilities impact on teaching and learning, which has potential to significantly impact education, and however important to address the challenges and ensure effective integration and use of digital technologies in education.